What is going on, BBN, and welcome back to the Kentucky Cavalry YouTube channel. We consistently upload videos related to Kentucky football and basketball, such as discussion videos, highlights of Wildcat players, and an upcoming brand new podcast. Today's video is about the abundance of talent that we now have at the wide receiver position. There is a lot of excitement surrounding the Kentucky football program after head coach Mark Stoops has taken multiple necessary steps to make sure that we no longer struggle to pass the football at a high level, which has been an issue since Stoops arrived in Lexington. The last couple years, however, it's been abysmal, and it's not far-fetched to say that Kentucky has been one of the worst teams in Power 5 football at throwing the ball. Thankfully, Coach Stoops hired a pass-centric offensive coordinator, brought in multiple high-level quarterbacks, bolstered the already strong offensive line, and last but not least, he's drastically improved our receiving core. Over the last couple of months, Kentucky has had a couple contributors from last season's wideout group transfer from the program. Akeem Hayes, Allen Daly, and Bryce Oliver were all somewhat talented guys who never got to show off their true potential because of the awful system that we had in place. Daly was my personal favorite of those three, as I loved his big frame and solid hands. Those guys left because there isn't really much space in the wide receiver room right now, seeing as how there are 11 talented players at the position without those three who just transferred. There are only a select amount of scholarship spots, so naturally a few had to leave. Best of luck to those guys in the future. There are so many names to talk about in that receiver room, and it's not clear who will round out the depth chart at the second or third string spots. We do know for almost a fact who the starters will be at that position though. I wanted to discuss some of the names to keep an eye on for the receiving corps as this team starts to find an identity through the air. The first big domino to fall for this group to be great was Josh Ali electing to return for his final season of college eligibility. The past 2 years, Ali has been the primary pass catcher for a struggling passing offense. He was pretty much the lone bright spot at wideout last season and carried the catching load alongside tight end Keaton Upshaw. Ali has mainly been used in the slot, taking lots of jet sweep handoffs as well as catching a lot of screens. Ali is kinda big for a slot receiver though, so I think this season he will play on the outside and try to show off his skills as a deep threat and a sideline wideout. His experience and familiarity with the coaching staff is a huge bonus to having him in there, as he can help coach up and teach the talented youngsters that we have at the position. Having him back is huge. Secondly, we have Nebraska transfer Wan'Dale Robinson. If you're a Kentucky fan, I don't think I have to explain what happened with Robinson's high school recruitment, but I'll briefly mention it anyway. Robinson was Mr. Kentucky football coming out of high school. He was a high 4-star recruit and one of the top-ranked athletes in his recruiting class. Wan'Dale was committed to Kentucky at one point, but before signing day, he decided to flip his commitment to Nebraska, where he spent the next 2 seasons. Kentucky fans were noticeably furious with Robinson's antics and felt that he played the coaching staff with his flipped commitment. Thankfully, after 2 seasons of practically carrying Nebraska's offense, Wan'Dale decided to transfer to Kentucky to play out the rest of his college days. And it's a good thing too. Robinson is one of the best playmakers in the entire country and is a prototype utility receiver who can be used in so many different ways. His natural fit is in the slot, where the offense can use him in jet sweep handoffs, bubble screens, and other short route packages. He also has incredible top-end speed and will likely be able to be used on deep routes to burn the secondary and complete big plays. Wan'Dale is an artist with the football in his hands, and his combination of speed and agility makes him the perfect slot receiver. I think Wan'Dale will be one of the focal points of this offense and might be one of the most exciting players we've seen play in Kentucky Blue. After Ali and Robinson, things get slightly more unknown, but not in a bad way. There are so many names on this roster that could emerge, and I think we'll see a lot of receivers get playing time this season as they try to figure out who the best guys are. The first name that will come to mind is Isaiah Epps. Epps is an experienced guy, and he's been around the program longer than most in that wide receiver room. Unfortunately, his promising career has been tarnished by countless injuries, so his on-the-field film has been pretty lackluster. We've heard since his arrival in Lexington about his elite speed, which makes him a legitimate deep threat for this offense if he can stay healthy. Posing a deep threat to keep the opponent's safeties from pushing up too much is very important to a balanced and successful offense, and that's been our problem in recent seasons. Having a guy like Epps who can burn downfield and open things up for us would be nice. We just have to hope that he can keep from being injured. Another big name that comes to my mind is Michigan State transfer Tre'von Morgan. Morgan was one of the highest rated receivers in the country coming out of his recruiting class and was a high 4-star prospect. He was also the #1 receiver in the state of Ohio. He initially took his talents to Michigan State, who has also struggled with throwing the ball recently. Morgan is a 6'6" red zone monster who can get up over smaller defenders with ease. He's a guy who can draw pass interference calls easily due to his size, similar to what we saw with Ahmad Wagner a couple seasons ago at Kentucky. Having a high-profile guy like Morgan who can go up and get those contested balls will be a nice weapon for whoever Kentucky's starting quarterback ends up being. Speaking of that, I made a video last week about who I think will win the starting QB job, so check that out on the channel if you want. Now we get into even more unknown territory. There are about 8 more guys on this roster who could compete for playing time. The 4 guys that we just talked about are almost guaranteed to see the field a good bit, but now we get to see who can separate themselves from the rest and earn some time. Michael Drennan Jr., aka Donut, was a massive steal for Kentucky in last season's recruiting haul. Drennan picked Kentucky over Florida and had a lot of buzz coming into last season. He was the #1 all-purpose back in the 2020 class and was a 4-star prospect. Unfortunately, Drennan didn't make much noise as a freshman last year. He saw the field a little bit, but our passing game was so awful that he never really got the chance to do anything. Just like Wan'Dale Robinson, Michael Drennan is a shifty and speedy slot receiver who makes guys miss and burns downfield. He's not quite as quick as Robinson, but they have very similar play styles. Drennan will probably be the second string slot receiver behind Wan'Dale Robinson, and they may even be on the field at the same time in certain situations. Either way, Drennan is a playmaker, and I'm sure they will find a way to get the ball in his hands when they can. The next guy on this list is incoming 4-star freshman Christian Lewis. Christian was criminally underrated for most of his high school career before finally being recognized with a 4-star ranking in his senior season. He's a prototype receiver with great intangibles, great speed, great hands, crisp route running, and solid evasiveness. I wasn't able to get his highlights for this video, but trust me, he's a Showtime player. Lewis is one of those guys who can get immediate production for us. He will eventually be a huge part of this offense, so it'll be interesting to see if that happens in his freshman year or later down the line after some development. Next up, DeMarcus Harris was second on the team in catches last season behind Josh Ali. He struggled mightily with drop issues throughout the year, so later in the season the ball stopped going his way. Harris is a lanky receiver with solid intangibles and great route running, so if he can clean up the drop issues, he'll be a nice experienced option for the short to medium range passing game. Other names float around like senior wideout Tre'von Thomas. Thomas is a seasoned veteran of the program but never really made much of an impact. He has 1 career touchdown and never really found his stride, despite showing flashes here and there. Tre'von has been getting lots of positive talk from coaches in spring camp, so maybe he can find his way onto the field as a senior. Dekel Crowdis is another incoming freshman who also had a 4-star rating. He was an ESPN top 300 recruit, but for some reason he hasn't received as much hype coming into the program as some other guys. Some say that Crowdis may have been rated a little higher than he should have been on the rankings, but only time will tell. He's another speedy slot guy who can burn downfield and make guys miss. His ranking was high coming into the program, so we'll have to see what he can do. Demonte Crooms has the fastest 40-yard dash time on the team, but has never seen a single snap of action. They're hoping that he can take the next step because his speed could be a valuable asset. Sophomores Isaiah Cummings and Ernest Sanders were big recruiting wins for us last season, and the coaches were very high on them at the start of last year. They didn't see much time as true freshmen, but it's possible that they break out this year. Chauncey Magwood and Devontae Ross are a pair of 3-star freshmen who seem to have been drastically underrated coming into the program as well. I've heard some people say that Ross is actually one of the best receivers in the entire class and that UK got a huge steal with him as he flew under the national recruiting radar a lot. Chauncey Magwood has also always received high praise from what I've seen. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, the entire receiving core for next year's Kentucky football team. This is a deep and talented group with some bona fide stars at the top end with Ali and Robinson. The rest of the contributors will have to fight their way into the system, but I think that's very healthy for the program. When you have that much talent competing with each other, the best of the best will emerge, and they will emerge stronger than ever. The pressure of competition against other high-level guys is enough to make real superstars show themselves, so I'm extremely excited to see what these guys can do. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and support the channel. It means a ton, and if you want to see more content, subscribe to see videos just like this one. Go Big Blue.